Thank you for listening to the Crown Refs Podcast, the audio experience for basketball officials. Serve the game.
The first thing, Paul, is that, you can't take the path of least resistance. We have a saying in the league called, what you permit, you promote. So if you allow something to occur, if you allow a coach to keep stomping his feet and running up and down the sideline, dropping clipboards, we can't have a conversation of one of us is yelling. And let's put the coaches on the spot a little.
Thanks for joining us on the Crown Refs Podcast, and welcome to our Mentor Group's special guest for November of 2021. I'm excited to welcome in a husband and a father of three and a recently retired 32-year NBA official who's worked over 1,500 regular season games and well over 100 playoff games in his amazing officiating career. It's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Bill Spooner. Bill, how are you, sir?
Very well, and it's great to be here. And I didn't, when you said that amount of games, I think that explains why my knees ache every morning, right?
I'm sitting here, I'm not a math whiz, but I'm doing a little subtraction and addition, and I'm looking at your bio here, and I noticed you started officiating in 1973. You stepped away in 2020. So I think that adds up to 47 years as a referee. You've had some serious reps.
Yes. I've seen a few plays here and there.
As they say, the real work begins when you start your career, as it did for you when you made it to the NBA. A lot of officials listening have big goals in mind, and we always appreciate hearing different origin stories. So maybe you can start us off there and share some of the paths that you took on your journey to the league.
Well, it's like anybody else. I started, probably most of us on the call started working kids' games. My dad said to me, "You better get a job this summer," and I didn't want to get a real job, so I went down to the park, started refereeing, fell in love with it. One of the guys told me, "You're pretty decent at this. You should join the high school association." So I did when I was done in high school, and I went to the very first referee camp there was, and I'd seen it at the bottom of what was referee newsletter back then. Black and white newsletter. It said something about a referee camp. And I said, well, I'll give that a shot. What the heck? And I went down there and I met a bunch of mentors. And I was real fortunate. A lot of them were D1 guys that took a liking to me. And I was able to kind of go from the high school to D1, fairly quickly. And then the right place, the right time with the NBA. And I didn't screw it up too bad over the years. And so I hung around for a while.
You said you jumped from high school to Division I. Doesn't necessarily happen a lot nowadays. How long was your?
I didn't jump. I jumped fairly quickly, but no, I went high school, junior college, D3. I kind of skipped D2 to tell you the truth, and then I started work. But I didn't work a full schedule for 3 years probably. I worked a little partial schedule.
And I see here you worked 7 years of Division I. While you were you training for the NBA game, on the side, or was it just an opportunity that presented itself?
It was an opportunity that presented itself. Maybe some of the people remember that Vancouver, Toronto, I think Charlotte, and Miami came into the league in '88 and '89, and the league, the league didn't feel they had enough guys who had worked large arenas in the back. Then it was the CBA, which is today's G League. And so they started looking around at the college, and they were looking at younger referees who were working college and working, like in the Pac-8, I think back then, and so forth. And they came to a couple of my games, and I got a phone call and said, "Hey, we want you to come to a summer league." And I went to a summer league, and at the end of it, they offered me a contract. I was one of, let me see, I'm trying to remember. There was 18 the first year that were hired, and I was hired with 7 guys. Joe DeRosa being one of them, probably a name everyone knows. And by the end of my career, I was the only guy standing. I had left out of that group of 25. So, a lot of luck, right place, the right time. And then if you get that shot, try not to screw it up.
Let's just stay here in the NBA. What year did you get your start there? And just take us through the first few years, working in the pros.
First season was the 89-90 season. First 3 to 5 years in the NBA, you're just trying to get somebody to know who the hell you are. And at the pro level, we don't go by ref, coach, anything like that. We go by first names. First 3 to 5 years, you're anonymous. And you hope you can just last long enough to somebody start to know your name. And, it's a real, the first 2-3 years in the league, you're learning a lot. I mean, you're learning how to get on a plane and be on time. And, there's just so many things to it. But I was lucky. I had good mentors, when I came into the league, and, 32 years later, I'm talking about it. So.
Any notable games or, players or experiences that just stand out? I'm sure there's a ton, but what just hits you?
Paul, to tell you the truth, it's probably not a ton. And other referees can relate. You kind of, especially in the NBA, you're kind of going game to game to game and just trying to remember where the hell you're going half the time. But a couple of the games, I worked Kobe's 81-point game.
Wow.
And
was Toronto playing any defense in that game?
Kobe was just hitting everything. He was hitting everything. Late in the game, I'm standing, I can't remember the player I'm standing next to, but it's an opposing player. Kobe was at the line, and I start hearing this chanting. I think it was like 73, something like that. And I turned to the player and I went, "What's that about? 73? What are they talking about?" He goes, "Kobe's got 73 points. We can't stop him." He was playing Toronto. And I went, "Seriously? He's got 73 points?" As a referee, you're kind of numb to all that. I knew he was making a lot of baskets, but I had no idea at 73 points. And then, of course, he went on to make eight more. And I always reminded him that I worked his 81-point game, and I was worth at least 65 of them.
You probably put him on the line 7 to 12 times, right?
I don't remember, to tell you the truth. I really don't. A couple other games. My very first conference final game was Boston and New York, and Boston came back from about 100 down to win in Boston Gardens, and it was so loud that Joey Crawford and I are trying to talk during a timeout, and we keep hearing this buzzing noise, and we found out, we were told later, that it was actually the stadium's noise coming down and hitting the parquet floor. And it kind of made this buzzing noise as it, deflected off of it. So, that's the first couple of games that come to mind. But if I sat down and thought about it more, but frankly, after about the first 100, after that, they start to run together a little bit.
Sure. I want to appreciate you sharing that. Just want to switch gears a little bit to some of the things you mentioned, that you were passionate about. We talk about running the game so much, and the different ways we can insert ourselves as leaders and crew chiefs. And I'm trying to take a tough stance with the officials in this group, because I want to help produce a tough-minded official who is courteous and respectful, but doesn't allow any nonsense to creep into the game and has the inner confidence to hold the participants of the game accountable. And I think we really connected last week on our phone call. We agreed that officials have kind of historically allowed coaches to get away with too much stuff. So what would you like to tell the officials listening about being courageous and running the game?
Well, I think the first thing, Paul, is that, you can't take the path of least resistance. And particularly with coaches, but players as well. We have a saying in the league we just say, what you permit, you promote. So if you allow something to occur, if you allow a coach to keep stomping his feet and running up and down the sideline, dropping clipboards, as long as you're permitting that, you're telling him that's okay to do. You're fine. Just keep, I'm obviously not going to do anything. So you can keep doing what you're doing. So, like I said, what you permit, you promote. I think what can help with coaches more than anything is, you got to listen and all that. But one of the first things I'll say to a coach is we can't have a conversation if one of us is yelling. And immediately, hopefully, they calm down. And now you have them in a conversation tone rather than screaming and yelling at you. Don't yell, let them scream at your back. Turn around, and if they're screaming about something, have the answer for them. It's 6-0 on the team fouls. Do you have a specific question about a particular play? Or are you saying that I'm cheating? And you know what? When we get to the second half, if it's 6-0 in your favor, what are you going to say then? So, you kind of, let's put the coaches on the spot a little bit. Some of the things I just wrote down some notes to myself. If you can quote a rule or tell a coach, for instance, he wants traveling, ask him which foot you have the pivot foot. Put him on the spot, make him answer.
Yep.
I've had coaches go, it doesn't matter. Yes, it does. It does matter. And that's when you can sit on. You got to know which is the pivot foot. I knew it was the left foot. I got his pivot foot right from the start. And so what is a coach going to say to that? No, you didn't. He doesn't. You just told him, I got that play from the start. Sometimes you get that high dribble. And, what they immediately start yelling is what? Discontinued dribble. You can get to the coach and go, he stayed on top of that ball or on the side of that ball. He did not get underneath it. He did not discontinue his dribble. That's a legal play. What else do coaches complain about? A player catches the ball and fumbles it. He might go a couple of different steps, right? But he hasn't caught the ball clean, and they're screaming travel. No possession, no travel, coach. You got to have the possession to travel. And again, what can they really say about that? They might argue he had possession or not, but guess what? He was bobbling the ball. Sometimes when I first got in the league, Daryl Garrettson, who was, probably the chief architect of the three-person system, he used to say to us that answer legitimate questions, don't respond to statements. If the statement warrants a technical foul, then do it. And you can say to him or her as well. I'm sorry. Coach, you have a specific question about a specific play. I'm not going to entertain questions about everything, but you put him on the spot. They're hand checking us. Do you have a specific play you want to complain about or you want to talk about? Just don't give me generalities. Tell me who you got to play. And that puts them on the spot. And coaches don't do well on the spot because they don't have an answer for a legitimate referee answer. They don't know how to answer that stuff.
Your answer is hitting me right in the chest. I gotta say,
another one you can talk about, the old block charge. Everybody says that's our toughest call, and we all know, referees, that's not true. Out of bounds is the hardest call. At least it always was my experience, and I think most referees will say that out of bounds because all of a sudden it just, ball goes sailing by you, and you have no idea how it got there. But a block charge, perfect thing to say to a coach is, I had the defender from the start, his feet were down, and he goes, yeah, well, he was leaning. No, he was firming up. So I got to allow a defender to firm up and take a shot. Again, you're putting him on the spot. No, he didn't beat him in the spot. Yes, he did. Well, and all you keep doing is stay strong and stay, committed to your play. On a block charge, coach wants to say, how was that a block on my guy? I think in the college and high school level, it's when the defender the offensive player leaves the floor, he has to be in the spot. Is that right?
It varies based on if we're talking about a ball handler or an airborne shooter.
Ball handler. I mean.
Yeah, so on a ball handler, he can maintain his legal guarding position by moving sideways, obliquely, or backwards.
and he has to be into a spot though before the offensive player leaves the floor. Is that what your guys' guidelines are?
He has to have established legal guarding position before the offensive player has left the floor, different from the pro rule of the gather, right?
Exactly.
And
that's why some people will say, my God, the guy was there for, a week and a half before. He's got to be there when the gather starts. And that's usually a full step before the guidelines that you guys use.
Yeah, it's really important when we're discussing rules to differentiate which, organizations we work for. I love what you were saying about putting the coaches on the spot by asking questions. We're not here to just answer questions. It's a great tool to reverse the dialogue and ask them questions and getting to the specifics. You think we're taught to listen too much to the coaches?
Yes. But let me qualify that as saying that I had a reputation as a red ass very early in my career. You tend to calm down, but I just think coaches are psychotics, and they're, if you can get them answering questions rather than screaming and yelling at you, you get on an even footing. You said a real interesting word about obliquely. How about you say that to a coach? What is he going to say? He has no idea what you're talking about. And then he says, what's that? Now you've got him. You're teaching him. You're talking to him. You're in control of the conversation. And you say obliquely is moving from side to side. He never beats the man to the spot. An offensive player didn't lower his shoulder. Your guy has to get to a perpendicular and beat him to the spot.
Yeah,
they want answers, and that's an answer.
Yeah, and we need to act as the expert.
Yes.
And not use language that can be debatable. I think a lot of officials with their approach is they're trying to prove to the coach that they got the call correct. They're trying to defend their call instead of simply providing a rule-based explanation and then maybe asking them a question.
And we don't want to get too, textbook, rule book lawyer-ish. Yep. But if you can hit them with different things like I've mentioned, and there's other things, listen, you guys have some things that work for you. So continue with that. And it's, you have to know you have to read your room. You got to know your coach. Know your people, and then, go accordingly. If you have a coach that is going to try and intimidate and start screaming from the get-go, well, what you permit, you promote.
What are some other little quick hitters that you might have to de-escalate a coach who's being loud? I know you said that we can't have a conversation if you're yelling. I'm sure you had other good tools in your bag for those instances.
I just had a remark and it left my brain real quick. One that I used to use over the years was, you missed that call. You might be right. It's possible, but not probable. I got the call right. Again, you're giving them an answer, but then you're kind of backing it up with, a little bit of humor saying, yeah, you might be right. It's possible I missed that, but not likely and not probable that I did. And now you can say, I'm not missing every call here, coach. And so that lets them know that you're really not going to entertain commentary on every call. Another thing to tell a coach is, coach, you complain on every call. So your credibility in terms of complaining about calls is kind of out the window because we're not missing every call out here. And you're complaining about every play. So, you got to make some choices out here.
Would you say the players or the coaches were most difficult to deal with in the NBA?
I think when I first came into the league, it was the coaches. We had, some real old timers, the Chuck Daly. I'm going to throw names out that you guys are too young to even know who they are, but Kevin Lockery and Dick Motta, these guys were ruthless. And if you look at videotape, as opposed to the game today, you don't see the players circling the wagons around the trail official during free throws. You didn't see that back then. Coaches were in your ear, yeah, no question. But and the game has changed now. I think it's more of a you have to deal with the players a lot more. I think the NBA made a mistake some years back when they told us that, let's be a little more patient. Let's listen a little bit more. Let's, be a little more hesitant to give technical fouls. And that just opened the door. Once you open the dam door, the gate to the dam, there ain't no putting the water back. So I think that happened about halfway through my career. And, I think that when they let the genie out of the bottle a little bit, it was really tough to get them back in. Now we have different guidelines, the wave off and the different, physical reactions are automatic. How many of us on the floor have given a technical foul and what did I do? Right? Player says, what did I do? Or the coach says, what did he do? I used to tell a player, you don't know what you did? Well, then that's the issue. You don't even know what you're doing out here. Now, again, I'm going to be a smart ass a little bit, but, well, if you don't know what you did and you got a technical foul for it, I suggest you learn what you did.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think we need to stop explaining technical fouls to coaches. That's a given. Like, we don't need to tell an adult why they misbehaved. That's kind of my philosophy, right? With the NBA players, same thing. I mean, if they don't have the self-awareness to know, as we start, dropping down in levels, it's a good game management tool to let a coach know maybe why his player got one if he didn't see it. But I think we spend too much time explaining why.
Yeah, at the high school level and the lower, that definitely high school for sure. An explanation to a coach, because then he will take care of his own player normally, and he might sit him down, or he might say, "You can't say stuff like that," because they have a little more control over their players. But I think an explanation. Now, do you stop play and go over there? No. At the best convenient time. Now, maybe sometimes you're supposed to go to the C. Well, yeah, guess what? Switch up the rotation and go to the T, the trail, and now you got a chance to calm your coach down and tell him what was going on.
Did you like to initiate that switch sometimes if you felt like you needed to go manage the coach?
Yes, absolutely. When I first got in the NBA, we used to go from calling official went to the what we call the slot. You guys call the center. And after a couple of years, we switched that because we weren't getting a chance to dialogue with coaches and let coaches know that we're not going to let them scream across the floor as. But every once in a while, you just look at your partner, or your partner looks at you and says, "Hey, go explain it to him." With just the body language of saying, "I'm going to slot," get your butt to trail and talk to him.
What's your philosophy and belief when your partner calls a technical foul? What's your interaction with the coach leading up, if or after that, if any at all?
Well, it's a sore spot to me and for me that your partner goes over to make good cop and make everybody, think he's the good guy and so forth. I've had a couple different discussions in an NBA locker room that was not friendly for someone doing that. I think you should stay away from the coach. I think you've got to let the situation play it out a little bit. And now you're going over to a coach. He's screaming and pointing at your partner. And now it just doesn't look good. It looks like you guys are discussing your partner. You might be shaking your head now. And all everybody sees is the coach saying your partner sucks. You're nodding your head. And that doesn't make for a great crew dynamic. I always felt that when you give a technical foul, you're always a little discombobulated for a moment. I don't care how many years you've been refereeing. If you have a partner after you have reported your foul, technical foul, such and such, and you turn around and there's a partner waiting for you with the ball, let's say at the jump ball circle, Bill, go shoot down there, and you want him to get you away from the coach. You don't go on the side down at the end that the coach you just gave a technical foul to, and stand at the free throw, in the lane. You're just inviting, conversation. He should point you to get away from the coach, and go down, shoot there, go down, shoot the other end, or get your butt to slot, and we got the shot. So I think that, and then I believe also that speeds the game along, and doesn't give the coach this dead time to yell, scream, and go crazy on you. And that's a good pregame thing to talk about. Hey, we have a technical foul. If I have a technical foul, when I turn around, I need one of you guys pointing me in the right direction.
Mm.
And if you have a technical foul, turn around, I'll be there with the ball, and I'll tell you what, and let's get this, the free throws done, and let's get the ball back in play.
That's a great partner there, because it's so true. During those few seconds, we get discombobulated. Sometimes when I call a tech, I black out for like 2 seconds, and I have to orient myself which side we're going to. So if we can have a partner come right in there and bring that proactive, information, that would be very helpful. And I agree. I think so. Distance, would you say, is a key factor there, making sure your partner is far enough away so you don't break into jail, so to speak?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? If you're at the other end of the floor and he comes after you and he comes across mid, guess what? He teched himself. You didn't give him a tech. He teched himself. It's defendable, justified by the, your assigner or the league office, whatever it may be. That coach was out of control. He came across half court. He's, stomping up and down the sideline.
Just to cap this topic, the only time I feel like it's necessary, being that part non-calling official, to go talk to the coach is if he doesn't stop after that tech and he's very close to getting ejected. Then you're going to go and play offense in that moment and do your best effort to maybe calm him to a 1, not going there to be a listener though.
No, and I don't think you want to get, too close to the coach, because now he's kind of got your ear. Get within 3 feet perhaps, and say, listen, you can't continue this. We're going to start the game. You got to bring yourself under control. Don't tell a coach to calm down. Just tell him, can you help me and get yourself under control? Now the onus is on him, and you haven't given him that. Hey, you need to calm down. Or you're out of control. I need you to help me now. I need you to get yourself under control.
Because people naturally don't want to be told what to do. They would like options. So if you can provide options and solutions.
And tell them, hey, can you help me?
I love that.
I need you to get yourself under control. Can you help me with that? It's very disarming. At least it always helped me with that, especially with players in the NBA level. Or you turn to the captain and you go, hey, Paul, you got to get Joe under control here. And guess what? Paul's going to get Joe under control.
It's because you're deploying them and you're almost empowering them to do what they do. If it's a captain, he's the leader of the team. You're empowering them to go be the leader and help you manage the game. So I think that's a good tool. Go ahead.
And again, if he still won't get himself under control, well, you get him the opportunity. His own teammate is told, dude, you got to calm it down here. And if he continues, listen, I did my best. I asked his captain to take care of it. He didn't do it. He didn't calm himself down. He gave himself a technical foul.
This is great. I want to keep going down this road. Something I've been thinking of that I think we do too much during timeouts and during halftime and maybe even during postgame is I have this concept of, I think coaches give us spam. They give us junk mail, right? They give us information that is totally inaccurate. Now, do you go in your junk mail folder and start opening it up and then sharing it and then reposting it and then commenting on your spam? You don't. But that's exactly what we do as officials. When a coach throws us spam, then we get together at the next time out and we know it's not a travel. And we say, Bill, did you see a travel on that play? I mean, the coach wanted a travel. I didn't see it. And then we start, that's just doubt creeping in. We allow this doubt. And I think that's why I'm onto it, because we get into self-doubt, right?
We do, and excuse me. The way the referee travels, as soon as the player gets the ball, is you've got to identify the pivot foot. And I've said right foot, left foot, and that way you shouldn't be going to your partners and going, "Did I miss that travel?" Because that's your primary, and they shouldn't be refereeing over there. So, but if you know, and if you're picking up that pivot foot, then again, you can answer that coach. Right foot was his pivot foot. Didn't move it before the dribble. You're also telling the coach that you kind of know what the hell you're doing out there. You're not guessing. I knew the right foot was the pivot foot. And if he says, no, it was the left foot. No, it wasn't the left foot. He's right-handed. Most players will use their opposite foot from their hand as their pivot foot.
That's great information. That's great sequencing right there.
I wrote myself a little note here, and my son is, starting to referee and starting to move up the ladder a little bit. And I said to him the other day, I said, "So what were you thinking about before the game?" And he had a team that was from, I think, back in Maryland, to tell you the truth, or they were far away. So I said, "What are you thinking here? What's what?" And he said, "I don't, I said, "Hey, how about that road coach?" Because again, they're psychotic. He immediately thinks he's going to get screwed, right? I mean, he's walking on the floor thinking, "I'm going to get homered. I'm going to get screwed." If you can get to him early and say, "Coach, you're not going to get hosed here. We're going to work hard. I care more about my game than I care about who wins this game." And hopefully I'll settle them down a little bit. You're recognizing that, you're on the road. I get it. And, if I were you, I might think I was getting hosed too. But look at, it's not important to me who wins. I'm here to get calls right, and I'm going to work hard. And so you're not going to get screwed tonight, okay? And I think that lots of times that can really disarm them because they think automatically that they're going to get screwed, right? I mean, we've all been there. Road coach thinks immediately he's going to get screwed.
What do you think of us allowing the language screwed, hosed, we're getting crushed, we're getting killed? I say we dictate the terms of the dialogue. You said what you permit us promote, what we permit we promote. Similar things there. How do you feel about managing that kind of language?
I think you need to, again, read the room. If he's down by 50 and he's just frustrated, you got to give the guy some room. You got to read the room. You got to know what's going on. That's mostly a statement. And again, unless the statement goes overboard, or the statement is very derogatory, you don't have to answer that. You don't need to reply to a general statement. And again, you got a specific play you want to talk about. I can answer questions about specific plays, but I'm not going to answer, a statement like that.
Was that one of your main replies when you addressed a comment that wasn't a question, knowing that you didn't want to address it, but you felt like you had to manage him in that moment?
Or you turn and say, he complains, listen, I said, "Do you have a question? I can answer a question for you, but I'm not going to really, address if you're just yelling and screaming."
Patrick, I know you were adding on to one of the conversations we had. You can unmute yourself if you have a question or something else to add. Go ahead.
Patrick, I'm reading what you said, and you're right. You're right on the money there, because if his own teammates can't get him to calm down, then they're gonna go after him. And now guess what? You're out of it. Now it's between its teammates stuff, and you're out of it.
Nice. Who scored?
So this is clearly the game management communication with coaches portion of the podcast. While we're still on it, does anybody else have any questions for Bill
Good job, buddy.
about these topics? They got it all figured out, Bill.
Excellent. That's all it takes.
All right, let's talk about film. I know you mentioned one of the things that you wanted to expand on was honest self-tape breakdown. Just talk to me about your film process, what you learned from it, and tips you have for the group to watching film.
So when I first got in the NBA, I had really not seen very much videotape of myself, and that camera don't lie, right? I think there's two things to remember. Is one, it's never going to be as good as you think it's going to be. When you're walking, you can't wait to see the tape because you thought you were so good, and guess what? Maybe you weren't so good. On the converse side is you walk in there and you go, man, I was horrible tonight, terrible. And then you look at the tape and you're probably not as bad as you thought you were. But the honest part, we used to call the guys yeah buts. And that's the guy saying, yeah, but see, he just ticked him right there and all that. Sometimes you just got to say, yeah, you're right. If, maybe you have a mentor that's, about every call, but, be honest with yourself. Did you have a good look? Did you have a closed look? Did the player turn away from you? Could you have held the whistle a little longer? Did you think that was a cheap and one? But more than anything, just, you got to be honest with yourself. Pick yourself apart. That's just the nature of refereeing is you're not going to be perfect. And the object is to be pretty damn good every night that you go out on the floor. And if you can do that, then, you'll be okay. That was my biggest challenge when I first got into the league, because every night's like a playoff game. I mean, you got the 400 best basketball players in the world. And you can't be great one night and then be mediocre the next night. You better be just pretty damn good every single night. Shoot for excellence, shoot for perfection, I guess, but you understand that excellence is awfully good. What
was it like as far as your film review when you were working in the NBA? I know you guys break down film a lot, post game, pre-game. Talk to me about your process there.
Again, when I first got in the league, because it was, there was 25 or 20 guys that, were brand new into the league, and you had to learn the pro. So we used to watch a lot of post-game videotape, a lot. The crew chief would, just kind of run the show. As a crew chief, I think what you can do to really facilitate some learning is that when you're watching a tape, pick out some of your plays first. Criticize yourself first. Say to the guy, hey, I shouldn't have had a whistle right away with you on that. And I think you can really make the room comfortable and that we're all in this together. As a crew chief or a mentor, you don't want to take that role of, just putting the guy down, putting the lady down right from the get-go. Take a shot at yourself a couple times, and that will make them accept some criticism. And I think it just makes for a better dynamic in a film room.
When you first started watching yourself on film, what were some of your biggest takeaways and observations from seeing yourself?
Wow. That's a long time ago, Paul. I remember, I'll tell you a funny story. I found a VHS tape, for God's sake, I worked the state junior college championships in California. And I think it was like about 3 or 4 years ago I got in the NBA. And I threw it on not too long ago. I got it, switched to a DVD. And I was just, oh my God, how did I get to the NBA? I suck. And I was just watching all these different things that I was doing, and I was shaking my head, and I looked at my son and said, "Don't do that stuff." Okay. I said, but back then, that was accepted, charging plays, the selling of calls. I'm a big believer that the more animation you put into your call, you receive that same feedback. That's the reaction that they have.
Hmm.
Whereas a lot of times, not nonchalant, but just boom, red, green, out of bounds, just sharp signals. I don't think you need to start the baseline and end up at the free throw line selling a call. I think that just brings more animation, and the coaches react to that. Whereas if you just, boom, blue, and a nice sharp point, foul, um, uh, you tend to get, I think, less reaction. But going back to the tape, look for your idiosyncrasies and look, be really honest, and don't be afraid to criticize yourself. Like, gosh, I don't like the way I report that foul. I didn't like that. Watch your, I learned as much watching guys work and thinking to myself, that'll work for me. That's not my part of my game. That wouldn't be good for me. Um, you know, get to as many games as you can. Watch the older referees, and say to yourself, "Oh, I'm not going to do that," or, "Hey, oh, it looks good. I'm gonna do that." You can learn a lot of stuff from other referees and the videotape, of course.
Bill, you're showing some real strong points on Zoom here. I'm watching you.
Yeah. Well, those days have passed me by, but hey.
And I love what you said about not selling calls. It's a topic we hit on a lot here. And I noticed the correlation between overselling or just selling of calls and being wrong.
Yeah.
Officials do it because they don't feel like they got it right, so they try to put on a show.
Something just popped in my head. The other thing I think that you should watch yourself is, are you jumping at plays? Meaning, are you, a foul like that instead of boom, foul? Are you jumping at plays? Normally that means that your timing's off, and or you're not refereeing the defender. And it kind of makes, other referees know that you have that little bit of a surprised look. And, if you can just, don't jump up. You shouldn't be hopping. You shouldn't be, jumping on plays. Just, you're out there not to watch the game. You're out there to work and referee and run the game.
Al Batista had some good tips on being in the lead and not being jumpy, keeping your weight on your back foot.
Yes.
Thought that was great.
And the Danny Crawford, who was one of the best referees the NBA ever had, he used to talk a lot about keeping the air down lower. Don't let the air creep up. When we have those plays, 4 or 5 rebound, put back. And all of a sudden the air started down here, but then every put back, the air gets here. And now you got a quick whistle on a play that, maybe if you kept the air down and you slowed yourself down, you got in the whole play.
I'm glad you brought up that play type, because that's a specific play type that actually tells me the person can really ref or has a high pain tolerance, when they could just sit there and no call, if it's incidental or not a legal contact. But those are hard plays because, like you said, there's a lot of pressure. It's loud, rebound, multiple players. So keeping the air in your belly low. Great tip.
The other day, I went to one of my son's game, and one of the guys, was just was jumping too much, and you could just tell that he was just too wound up. And calm yourself down, referee the defense, just call plays. That's all just call the plays. You don't need to add anything to it, really. And again, I think sometimes when we get a little bit too animated, that's the reaction that you're going to get.
And animated calls is definitely a big part of older officiating, right? Wouldn't you say it was way more prevalent back in the day?
Completely.
It's part of the
Yes.
culture, more accepted.
Part of the philosophy back then is, again, we're going back to it. You got to sell your calls. You got to sell your calls. Well, if you're selling a lot, guess what? They're not buying it anymore. So if you're going to have to sell a call, which is fine, we all have to sell one at some time or another. Then if you're only selling once or twice a game or once a game, then they might be buying it. But if you're selling like 6, 8 calls and, getting a little wound up, your believability is going to start dropping with every time that you try and sell. Well, everyone, they're going to buy a little less all the time.
I think on those plays where we feel like we need to kind of over communicate what happened, maybe, selling with multiple tweets or just a well-timed tweet, pause, cadence with your signal there. I find the strength in simplicity a lot of the times.
Agreed. The thing I was going to talk about is I went to my son's game, and there was one of the referees. One of those games that you just don't have a lot of plays.
Mm-hmm.
It's just they're just going away from you, or the other guys have a lot of the whistles. And I told him after the game, and they asked me to come to the locker room, and we'll just see. And I said I was really impressed by you not having that self conversation of, man, I got to get in the game. And you didn't start reaching out. You didn't start saying, I got to get some calls here. And you stayed back. You just worked your primary. And then in the second half, you started, you got a couple more of the calls. I said, you really showed me good refereeing, that you didn't get caught up in, man, I got to get some plays. I got to get some calls here. On the same token, you got a guy who's not having a lot of calls, and you're the crew chief, and you've been around 100 years, and everybody believes what you have. If you got a double whistle, don't be charging to the table taking it. Let your young guy take it. Let him take the call. You've had a whistle on it. Everybody believes you. Now you're giving him, and now the coach says, "Hey, coach, I had the same play. I had the exact same call. We had double whistle on it. I had the same play." So I was impressed with this guy, the way he did that. He was confident that, you know what, I'm going to stay in my area here, and I'm not going to start reaching because I feel like I haven't had enough whistles.
And the natural tendency when refs feel like they don't have enough whistles is to start judging themselves and saying, "Oh, I'm missing something. What am I missing? Yep. I got to get in this game. I don't have it today."
Exactly. And guess what? Sooner or later, the plays will come to you. Hey, if you get off the floor that night, your batting, you got a better chance of having a better batting percentage the less calls that you have. But you know what? That's like the third base umpire, the left field umpire in the World Series. You don't do anything for 8 2/3 innings, and now you got a banger that's a foul ball with right down the line. You might have been whole game. I don't have a lot of plays. I have a lot of plays, and all of a sudden, the last 2 minutes of the game, you got them all. So be careful what you wish for.
I was producing some content today on self-talk and different ways we self-talk in the game. What were some ways that you kind of were speaking to yourself during the game?
Monty McCutcheon, the supervisor of officials in the NBA, said something a couple of years ago that really got my attention. He said, refereeing is a constant dialogue with yourself. Every play you get down, and let's say you settle into the lead. I used to say a little bit, farther back in my career, okay, referee the defense. Always get back. If you're struggling, go back to fundamentals. Are you refereeing the defense? Are you jumping at plays? Are you keeping the air down? Am I going too fast? Those are the basic fundamentals. That self-dialogue all right, we're in the bonus situation. We're in a penalty. It's got to be there. You can't be guessing at plays. So awareness, again, you're not out there to watch the game. You're out there to referee the game. Constantly talking to yourself, constantly saying to yourself before every throw in, check the clock. You got to kind of a quasi steal? Did he get it? Did the team get it back? Guy's going out of bounds. Did he grab the ball and control the throw back, or did he bat it? You're thinking to yourself, all right, whatever he does with that ball, I'm going to check the shot clock. I'm going to see if did he control it? Did they reset it? Did he not control it? Did they reset it? And so forth. And it's just a peek up, but clock awareness, it looks sharp. You look like you're in the ball game and you're running the game. When you pick up, before the throw in, you got the high school kid running the clock. Boom, I need it at 35, or boom, I need it at 25. Boy, I tell you what, that's an opportunity. You show that you're running the game.
I speak to a lot of officials, and one of the most common things, or one of the most common topics we talk about is partners. And they're always asking, how to work with partners of various skill levels, various personalities. I find that we judge, and Mark Wunderlich said this great, and it was an eye opener for me. We judge ourselves too much during the game, and we judge our partners' calls too much during the game. What do you have to say about judging ourselves and partners?
Mark is one of the finest teachers of refereeing there is. He's right. What you want to do is to not judge your partner's calls, or as so much as does it fit the game? Is he putting whistles on play? Is she putting whistles on plays like cheap and ones? Maybe during a timeout, you might want to say, hey, how'd you like that? How'd you like that last play? What'd you think? And maybe they'll say, yeah, it was a kind of a cheap and one. Well, now you guys are working together. Or you go up and say, hey, what'd you think about that and one I had? And hey, tell me the truth. Yeah, it's kind of a cheap one. Okay, all right, thanks. And now guess what? Now you're partners. Do you judge your play? Well, yeah, we all kind of judge a play, but you're not. You're judging it to, it's part of the game a little bit. But now you're judging it, and now you can help him with it or help him or her with it if they ask you about the play.
Absolutely. Anybody have any questions for Bill? I know we are grooving right now, but feel free to step in. All right, so we talked about, let's get into mentoring. This is Crown Ref's Mentor. So let's talk about mentoring. Before we get into that, you obviously have a son. You mentioned, I know Drew. Drew has been a supporter of Crown Refs pretty much since the beginning. So just talk to me about your relationship with Drew and what it's been like kind of mentoring him through officiating.
Well, the first thing, because it's my son, is I try to keep a real low profile with it. And I usually get in the car if I go to the game with him, and I don't say anything until he asks me about the play, or he asks me about, so what do you got for me? And then I'll start giving. I always give him 2 or 3 things that I think he did really well at the outset. And then, hey, think about this on that play. Or did you like that play? And again, you're engaging with them. Mentoring, I really owe my career to a lot of good mentors. Be selfless. And if you're going to be a mentor, be prepared that your mentee might fly by you. And that happens pretty frequently. And if you're not equipped to take pride in that, and that's going to make you envious or jealous, then you shouldn't be a mentor. A mentor is someone who really, it's not about self. It's about helping someone and giving back to, because I guarantee you that on the way up, somebody helped you. And so I think that's one of the great things about this fraternity is that, you know what, you got to give back at some point.
And I would like everybody on this call to surpass me. And if you haven't already, like that, and you take that philosophy or that mentality into the people that you guys and gals are going to develop. And you want those people to to elevate to, you know, a level that maybe you can't get to, and because you helped get him there.
Yeah, that's pretty satisfying too. It really is. Um, I really enjoy it. Like I said, my son's starting to referee, and I go to the games, and I don't go down to the locker room unless he texts me and says, "Hey, the guys want you to come in." But it's great to see a guy that you might have mentioned some things to, and all of a sudden now his career's starting to take off, and that's very fun to me. If you didn't be a mentor, take joy in that. Take joy in someone, really upping their game because you helped them a little bit. And like I said, maybe one day they might pass you by, but that's how life works.
When did he start to develop the interest where you guys started having officiating conversations? Was it something he always did?
He started at the local youth association. I mentioned it to him. I say, hey, you can make a little extra money. You might, try refereeing. You might like it. I said, but if you don't, that's okay too. And I think he was one of those, like a lot of us probably, that you fell in love with the first time you're on the floor. There's something about it. It's that challenge of being, perfect, which we're not going to get there. And so after a couple of years, when he was 16, 17, he joined the high school association. And I remember going to one of his games, and I called my wife and said, geez, kind of looks like he knows what he's doing a little bit. So he's like, looks pretty good. And she goes, well, yeah, what do you think he's been doing for the last, 15, 18 years? I don't know what. He's been watching you and all the other NBA guys for that long. So he better know what the hell he's doing a little bit. But, like I said, I when I go to his games, I wait till he asks me something, and then I'll, give my feedback on it.
Now, he mentioned your father was a ref as well?
No, actually, my father-in-law
Okay.
Was Paul Mahalik, still living. And he was an NBA referee for many, many years, like 27 or 28. And quick personal story is his daughter went to one of his games in Cleveland. I was working in Cleveland with him. He had asked me for my tickets after the game. The family is going to have some dinner. Said, hey, you want to come to dinner? And went to dinner and met this blonde. I didn't know was his daughter right away. And 26, 7 years later, we're still there. So, kind of a lot of people ask me, so did your father-in-law get you into the league? I was like, no, I was in the league for 7 years before, before I met his daughter.
Very interesting. How did that relationship play out? With you being inspired by him and what you learned from him?
Well, after his daughter and I had gone out a handful of times, I went to his room and said, hey, you got a minute? I'd like to talk to you about something. And I think he kind of had an inkling of it. And so I walked in and said, look, I said, I don't know if you're aware, but Chris and I have been seeing each other. And if you have a problem with that, now's the time to tell me. I also was very aware he was a hunter. So he had a lot of ammunition and guns. I was quite aware of that. And I just said, oh, hey, if you got a problem with that, let's, but for about a year, we kept it under the down low. We didn't let many other NBA people really know about it.
Very cool.
Kind of a need to know basis.
So there's definitely some pedigree within your family lineage.
Yeah, there is.
You mentioned something really interesting. What you love about officiating. You mentioned the challenge of perfection. It's something that we're all trying to achieve. We want to go out there and have the greatest game ever. We want to go and not miss any plays, but it's not attainable. So how do we, navigate around that imperfection?
Learn from your mistakes. I use the analogy in some of the group are golfers. I don't care if you shoot 70 or you shoot 170. You walk off the course and you think, oh gosh, I could have maybe shot 68 if I just put that ball in the right part of the green. You've never played a perfect round of golf, no matter what you shoot. You always think you can beat it. And that was the challenge of refereeing. And so that's when it comes down to, you gotta be honest with yourself. You gotta learn from your mistakes, learn from your, your mannerisms. Did I have the right mannerism? Watch yourself on videotape, check your body language out. What are you projecting and so forth. There's so many ways to learn that, if you're willing to be honest with yourself, you're going to get successful. You're going to get better. You're going to improve. And then the other thing about watching videotape is that as referees, what we really want to do is build our library. Play, and Paul, you mentioned earlier about repetition. That's the greatest teacher for refereing. You've seen that block charge 100 times. You've seen that hand check 100 times. And that will suit you, because all of a sudden now your little replay system in your head, boom, I've had that call, boom, I got that play.
Thanks for adding that. I love to ask guests, especially a person like yourself who worked for the NBA or just for any organization for 32 years. I think that's super impressive and respectful and honorable. What are some of your keys to career longevity that allowed you to have such a long career?
Luck. Mentors that helped me along the way. Being in the right place at the right time. Having a supportive family. Yes, my wife was the daughter of an NBA referee, but that's not the same as being, the spouse and then have the responsibility as a parent. So you need that support. If you're hearing from the house that, you're gone again, it's okay to take a night off once in a while. I see Patrick said that about the number. Yes, Patrick, I did take number 22 off of him. And it'll be interesting to see who gets it next year.
You took 22 off of who?
My father-in-law, when he retired, awesome. I took his number.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm sure your wife was happy with that.
Actually, yeah, I think she was. He was happy that I asked for it. He felt good about that I wanted to wear the number.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So let me just backtrack for a second.
Aaron said that's the best number, by the way. I assume Aaron wore that number. Oh, yeah, okay. Patrick just asked me about a tattoo. So I don't know if I can see it. I have it. I have the number 22 tattooed right here.
Nice.
And it was we're in Hawaii some years back, and my wife says, "Hey, the kids want something to talk, have something to talk about. They want to ask you about something." And the first thing, they say, "Well, gosh, they wore number 22 was their number. My daughter played college soccer. She wore 22. My son, wore 22 in high school." And they said, we think we should all get commemorate our trip and get a tattoo. And I said, "Oh, hell no, that's not going to happen." And then I kind of see the disappointment on their face. I said, "Well, look, okay, what were you guys thinking of?" And again, I'm ready to say, "No, not going to happen." And my daughter goes, "Well, we thought we'd get a number 22, we all get a 22 someplace, very inconspicuous." And I went, "Hey, okay, geez, you guys, okay." So we talked about it for a couple of days. And so my wife and daughter have kind of a handwriting, a scrollish type of 22 on their ankle. And I have a 22 here. And then my son, he got a 22 here. Now it's only about an inch each side. It's only about an inch up and width-wise. But we put his on the chest because he was still in high school. And we knew if he was wearing a basketball uniform and he had a tattoo, we would officially go down as the worst parents ever.
Bill, you're a badass ref.
We got some other guys that got some too. They know how to hide them.
All right, we're getting active in the chats here. I want you guys to unmute yourself and ask away. We'll go to Ryan who's a sophomore at Texas A&M University. Good evening, Ryan.
Hey, how are y'all doing?
Put a shirt on,
Yeah.
sir.
Sorry.
Just kidding.
Sorry, I was going. I just got done with my game. Sorry. I was gonna ask. Where's the question? What was one thing you would tell yourself now or back then that you know now?
That I didn't know back then.
Yeah, one thing you know now that you tell yourself back then.
That if you can calm yourself down and just take one play at a time, and not and understand what's going on around you all the time. Early in my career, I was, I was just trying to get one play in a row right, and I would get a little too animated at times. And I just, like I said, I think you invite the reaction. Joey Crawford tells a story when he was first in the league. He was teching guys left and right. And finally turned to, I think it was Earl Strom, who some of you young people probably don't know who it is, but Earl was the NBA referee of all time, kind of. And he said, Earl, man, I can't handle it. Everybody's just screaming and yelling at me. I'm whacking guys left and right. And Earl just kind of said, well, have you ever considered that maybe it's you? And Joey said that he took a step back and went, oh, damn, yeah, it is me. So, there's a guy at that stature, and he was able to take a step back and look at himself and say, yeah, that, I do need to improve on that. I need to slow down a little bit. That makes sense, Ryan?
Yeah, that's good. So I think Paul always tells me, only control what you can control. So
Yeah,
it's kind of on that.
yeah. And I think if you give, that aura of control, then that's what you also, you kind of receive.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Like you can't, like, I actually told my son this the other day. I said, you can't go to the table every time and 23 on the arm, boom. Every once in a while, 23 walk hits him in the arm. Again, you just bring it down a little bit, and you sound so. You're not trying to sell. You're just reporting a foul.
Thank you.
Sure.
Ryan's got a great attitude. He's my nephew, or my rephew. We're still working on proper Zoom etiquette. We'll get there. Ryan. Appreciate you participating, though.
I didn't realize I didn't have a shirt on. My fault.
And he is brolic, though, so I understand why he would have a shirt off. Let's take it to Zach. Zach, you had a question. You can unmute. Ask away. Go ahead, Carmela. Tell him.
Zach, you're on mute.
My bad. Hey, Bill, how's it going?
Good. Thank you, Zach.
So I had a
Nice to meet
question
you.
in regards to what was like the biggest stumbling block or roadblock on your way of becoming a NBA official and also just becoming a professional official, jumping up from the high school, ranks up to, JUCO, D2. What was kind of the biggest challenge there?
The first biggest challenge was that when I was 18 or 20, I still looked like I was 16. When I had the baby face and younger, and you wore your hair a little bit longer in those days. I actually a couple of times going into a college gym had to pull my jersey out to show that I really am one of the referees, because they didn't believe me. There was no way they believed me. So I kind of had to overcome that a little bit. I think as a young referee, you're always the young referee, and sometimes you might stay that way for a long time, and then you think of yourself that way, and maybe you tell yourself, I really can't step up here. I'm the young referee on the crew. But if you know your rules and you got your act together, that's when you can step up. Because let's be honest. A lot of us work with older referees, and they don't know the rules as well as younger referees can. One of the reasons is because I know in the NBA, we've changed the clear path rule about 4 or 5 times over the last 30 years. Hell, I don't even know the clear path rule anymore because we changed it so much. So you know what? On something like that, I was always looking at my, one of the younger guys on the crew, and they knew that was the time to step up and take care of business. So, I tell my son, know the rules, and don't be afraid to when it's time to step up, be right, but have the confidence to step up when you know what's going on. So, but I guess to answer your question is, I was very youthful looking when I was younger, and so that was a bit of a hurdle for me to get over. To tell you the truth,
Mm.
Bill,
just because you're a young referee doesn't mean that you have you're the third best referee on the crew just because you're the youngest one.
Right.
well, Bill, you still have a baby face, in my opinion.
Pedro wants to know what I do anything different in my journey, and I don't really know if I would or not. Again, I was so fortunate to be in the right place at the right time. I think that I'm not really sure I'd do anything particularly different, other than toning myself down earlier in my career, understanding that you can't scream and yell at everyone, that they're going to scream and yell back, and so forth. So I guess that would be something I would have done a little. And if I'm being really truly honest too, I should have been the best rules guy instead of I was a pretty good rules guy, but I should have been the best in my mind. I should have been a really good rules referee, and I was pretty good rules referee, but I could have been better.
Cool. Thank you for that. I personally wish I've been refereeing for 10 years, and I wish I had taken it more serious sooner. I think about 5 years in, I was like, oh, okay, I'm into this.
Yeah.
And thankfully I came across Crown Refs that helped kind of motivate me even more. The content helped feed my hunger. And this group has been beneficial as well. But for me, I think that's what kind of triggered my question to you, because I'm like, I wish I had taken it more serious, because I imagined that if I had, I'd be further along in my journey. So that's where that kind of stems from. So,
but hey, at this outset, you don't know where it's going to take you. When you started, you had no idea where it was going to take you, and you probably just at the start was along for the ride for fun, for some fun and some extra cash, right?
I mean, there's love of the game, right? You just you're like, hey, I can't play anymore. I'm done with that, And and I didn't go pro. I didn't play college. I want to still be able to be a part of the game and give back. So
I mean, the fact that you recognize it, well, that gives you a head start right there too. I mean, you know what you know where to go from here.
Right. Thank you.
Guys, every second we wish and dwell about, us doing something different is a second taken away from being productive and taking advantage of your opportunity to grow today. So if we could just kind of divert that energy into, growth mindset, and timing is everything, Pedro. I was telling you, you have a very bright future, and you're exactly where you are in your career for a reason. And it's playing out the way it should play out. So just embrace it like that. You got a lot of time. And,
I think one of the mistakes that referees make is we all want to move up fast. There's no question. I mean, we want to move up fast. Don't get someplace you're not ready for. I remember I thought that I should have been in the third round of the conference finals a year or two before I got there. And then the first game I had, I thought to myself, oh boy, I'm glad that I'm here now and not a couple of years ago, because I might not have been ready for it. So, guard against that moving too fast, because if you get somewhere that you're not ready for, you can really knock yourself down a couple of pegs because you just didn't handle the situation, and you can injure your career a little bit that way, or your growth that way. Get somewhere a year late rather than somewhere a year too early.
Kalina Tostado has a question. Hello, Kalina.
Hey, Kalina.
Hey, Bill, I appreciate you tonight taking the time to talk to us. But my question is, have you worked with any of the female refs?
Yes, I worked with Violet a ton. Violet Palmer, her and Dee Cantner, one of the first two. Worked with Lauren Holtkamp a lot. In fact, Lauren and I, we had one of our referees get hurt during the games, and so Lauren and I went two-person for about 3 quarters. Well, she had never worked, in this era now, she had never worked 3-person. I'm sorry, 2. And I had, because, we didn't have 3 referees at the start of my career, or, when I worked in high school and some college. And then when we went down and worked in the CBA a little bit in our first couple of years in the NBA, it was 2-person. She just knocked it out of the park. I mean, she was just such a good referee that night, and she's a good referee. The other one, Jenna. I didn't work with them. Last couple of years, I've been out with injuries, so I really haven't worked a lot with the other ladies on the staff. But Violet, I worked with Violet a lot.
Any advice you can give out to like myself and Carmela that are on the call?
Earn the respect, and you will. If you can referee, then the guys don't care. Really. Female, male, just be the best at your level, and which is kind of an obvious thing, but the ladies that we have on the staff, they can all referee. Now, there's going to be that discrimination of some people, some players are, wondering, can they really referee? So you better be able to do it, and you better be ready to, again, going back, be hard on yourself. Be hard on yourself. Handle yourself very professionally. Show up to games, dressed appropriate, and let people know that you're serious. That you're serious about it. What kind of ball are you working?
I'm sorry?
What kind of level, and how long have you been refereeing?
This is gonna be my 13th season. I just got picked up to do junior college this year.
Okay, so you're moving up.
Yeah, I'm kind of like casual. I don't know, started a little late, and
Yeah.
it's okay. It feels like the first season every game.
Perfect. That's great. You're still enjoying it and all that. So that's half the battle too. If you enjoy what you're doing, then you'll work hard at it.
Mm-hmm.
I hope
Right.
that helped you.
Thank you.
Let me tell you this, that one of the reasons Violet Palmer was so successful is she gained the respect of the rest of the male staff, if you will, very quickly, because she was willing to sit in a film room and, say, I need to work on that, accept constructive criticism. She earned our respect very quickly. And then she was a damn good referee, and, that's the other thing. You earn the respect if you can do the job.
Good deal. Thank you.
Thanks for the question.
Great question so far. I'm loving the conversation, Bill. Loving your answers. Learning a lot from you tonight. Looking forward to going back and listening again. Are there any other topics that you would like to talk about with our dedicated audience that's listening?
Jeez, we talked about mentoring, talked about handling coaches. Those are such 2 key ingredients of, and then that, I think, what our boss Monty said, it was that it's a constant dialogue. It keeps you in the game. You can't just. We have the saying is that you do not react to plays, you respond to plays. And react is usually that quick boom, where you respond to plays. You let the play, start, begin, and end, right? Start, develop, and finish. And the better you get at that, the better referee you're going to be.
Speaking of respond and react, you could listen to the Crown Refs podcast. I think episode 48. That's the title of the episode. So we do a deep dive into just that whole concept of responding versus reaction and what it looks like and how it plays out for us officials during the game.
Hey, Bill, I have a question. It's Carmela. How do you stay engaged in games that are blowouts?
At the NBA level, because every play is graded. I don't care, every non-call, out of bounds, everything is graded. So you got to stay in the ball game. I remember coming up, I always taught myself or told myself that you never know who's in the stands. And the night that you just kind of have a 30-point blowout and you kind of Cadillac it or wreck ball it, that's the night some Division III coach might be in the stands watching, and you didn't make a very good impression. Whereas if you got a blowout and you're still hustling, you're still working, they'll notice that. They'll see that. Just it's that you're always fighting with yourself to be better than your last game, and you never know who might be in the stands. I remember, and I tell my son that all the time. I said, don't forget, you never know who might be up there watching.
Thank you.
Make sense?
Yes, sir.
Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, I worked a game the other night. It was 22-0, and I'm just, and the game played out the same point differential. It was like even more, about 30, 40-point game. And I just try to go into gratitude mode and just appreciate the opportunity to be out there on the court. It's easy money too. Like that game is easy. I mean, what are we, complaining about? So, but you can get bored, right? So it's a self-talk reminders.
It's a self-talk reminder, and guess what? That's good for you. You're teaching yourself something. That you now have that challenge of staying in the ball game, or you say, okay, well, you know what? This game's 22-0. I'm going to work on the way I report a foul, or just take some things that you can work on during the game, or that you want to challenge yourself to. That will keep you in the ball game. And then it's also, and Paul, 22-0, you had to manage that game. You couldn't keep, just burying the team with 0. You don't cheat, but you got to manage the game. You got to manage, that coach who's getting killed. So it does, even though it's a blowout, you got to stay in the ball game. You can help yourself. You can learn. Now I got to manage a coach who's getting destroyed by 100. Okay, I'm gonna learn something how to deal with that. There's always something to learn with refereeing. That's the beauty of it, I think.
I think a lot of officials predicate how the game was based on the competition or the final score, or if they were putting the ball in their basket. So many of these other factors that actually don't have anything to do, in my opinion, with the calls in the game or the officiating, so to speak. I'm just trying to take a different approach when somebody asks me how the game went. I'm just always saying, it's good. It went well. Like just trying to improve and not base it based on this 50-point game. Oh, it was a terrible game. These teams were awful. It's just a mentality switch that we need to make.
It is. And like I said, take it as a learning situation. Challenge yourself with a learning situation. Again, how about learn how to deal with the coaches losing by 100? No matter what you say, lots of times when you're losing by that much, well, then you got to find a new way to say something. Challenge yourself on that. There's always something to work on. again, I'll go back to that's to me is what's so fun about officiating is that you always can learn something, get better at something. Tell yourself, well, I'm not going to do that again. Or, man, if I had said to the coach, I said it this way rather than that way, you can always learn. And sometimes those kind of games you learn more because you got to really think about, is that an impactful call? Does that call need to be made? How does it fit the game? A slight strip and maybe a little bit of a finger when you're and the team's down by 100. Do you really have to make that call? And are you thinking about that, or are you just reacting to it instead of responding to it?
Anybody have any other questions for Bill?
Yeah, I wanted to kind of go back on his comment about better, something along the lines that you said, better to be a year late. What kind of like self-reflection did you have to realize that? Like, what was it in particular about yourself that you realized that, like, hey, it's good that I got here now because I'm now ready, but a year ago I wasn't.
About 5 minutes into the game, I thought to myself, oh hell, I think that it's a good thing that I'm here now and not in the last couple of years, quite frankly. And I've seen it happen too much, where somebody gets moved up too fast, and then all of a sudden some stuff happens, and when that happens, you plateau quickly. I've seen over the years, and if you can, when you get to that semifinal game, you probably thought you should have gotten in it a couple of years before, but when you get there now, you are ready for it. And I was fortunate. I did move up fast, but guess what? I also had some disappointments that, gosh, I should be working that game. And then you find out, well, you know what? When you worked it the next year, okay, now I'm ready for this game.
Well, what was it like? What was it about you personally? Was it like your game management skills? Was it your, what was it about you that you were like, this is why I wasn't ready then, and now I am?
Perhaps the speed of the game of that, the speed, but then you get to the playoffs and it's faster. Just being a better referee, having more awareness. You've just matured from year 6 to all of a sudden now you're working that game in year 8. Well, you should have learned a lot in year 6 and 7 to get yourself ready in year 8 to work that game. And you probably might not have been as ready at year 6 and 7, but you were almost there and getting there. And then year 8, you were ready for it. And, I think every referee, we all think we should be working game 7 of the NBA finals, right? I mean, that's just the way it goes. But be careful what you wish for, because when you get to that spot, there is a hell of a lot going on. And so you want to make sure that you're ready for it.
Bill, which conference finals were you talking about? The first one.
The very first one I worked was Eastern was like that Boston, New Jersey game, and that's basically our Final Four is the conference finals.
Got it.
I had one more question. I don't know if you guys talked about this earlier, and I apologize. What kind of film watching tips do you have, like, to help with you? I mean, sometimes I find myself, I do a lot on my own. I just kind of catalog everything by minute and just kind of go through it. But is there any tips you have on your end as far as watching film?
Be very self-critical. Don't watch film to pat yourself on the back. Watch film to make yourself better. And usually we get better by being self-critical. It doesn't mean you get, you're just killing yourself, but, be self-critical, learn, and just, watch your body language, just all that kind of thing. And watch what your partners are calling and think to yourself, does he really have a good look? Is she closed off on that play? I think one of the things that, especially in the 3-person system, you have to know what your partners can and cannot see. Let's say the curl play across the middle. As soon as it leaves and starts going away from the lead as the center, you got to know that he can't referee that play very well anymore. Now I'm the better one to I have the best shot at it. And when you can realize where your partners can and cannot have their good looks, and as long as hopefully they're not guessing, then I think you can make yourself a much better referee. So tape. Hey, you're watching the tape. You're doing what you should be doing. And get feedback from your partners. And guess what? Some things they'll tell you that it doesn't work for you. That's okay. Now you've learned something that doesn't work for me. So I have a question from Lucas here. It says, what was some of your pregame rituals and how did your off season look like? Referees, we all have our routines, right? I used to get on. We all have bikes in our locker rooms and all. I used to get on the bike at the 75-minute mark, and then I'd start stretching at the 60 after I got warmed up, and I had my routine down. I think referees are very routine oriented in that respect. So and I always also used to have a little index card. It was just really referee the defense, slow down, just kind of little things like that. Other question is, how did your off season look like? The first year I was in the NBA, I sat on the couch for about 3 weeks just trying to decompress from it all. Then you learn how to and so forth. The off season was spent a lot of time with the kids, wife, kids sports. And then all of a sudden you start looking at the calendar and you realize you gotta, start getting on the bike. You gotta start running a little bit. You gotta start reading the rule book. Our off season, if you work a little bit into the playoffs, you got about 4 months off. So you let the body heal up for the first month, and then you start back into your conditioning routine.
This may be a silly question, Bill, but when you got into the league, were referees? Was that a full-time career for referees at that time?
Yes.
Was that always the case, you think, for NBA referees?
I think my guess it was probably about the early 80s when you were still like getting a full schedule or a partial schedule and so forth. But once our union, the NBRA, started getting a little stronger, and the NBA realized that they needed, a full-time staff, that the game was getting to the point where you really had to be, in the business all the time.
And I'm sure that inspired a great improvement in the officiating as well, right?
Yeah, it did. It definitely did. It was a little before my time, but I remember some of the older guys talking about, different guys. And one of the things is if you worked, 1 or 2 games or 1 game or 2 games every every 2 weeks, let's say, well, you're not going to build your reputation up very quickly. You're not going to build a reputation with the players. So it really kind of works. It doesn't help your game is to just work a couple here and work a couple there. You have to be working 3-4 nights a week to really get into the groove, I think.
What are some, I love thinking about refereeing in a historical perspective. Was there any particular years where you noticed that officiating was becoming more advanced and more detailed with some, great teachers stepping up to the plate?
Yeah, probably. Well, one of the greatest teachers was the man who hired me, Daryl Garrettson. We did a lot of film work, but I think that the refereeing took a whole quantum leap when Ed Rush became our boss. He, a lot of the terminology we used in this day and age was his terminology: closed look, referee the defense, pick up the pivot foot, the pivot foot, defender, dribble, all the sequencing. He was the one that really could break down a tape and see things that you just wouldn't see. He just was an amazing teacher in that respect. And that was when the laptop started. And so the video and the exchange of information was a lot quicker and more turnaround. And I think that's when we took a definite paradigm leap, when it really got much better.
Pretty amazing, the technology we have and the resources that we have to learn about officiating or whatever you like to learn about.
In the NBA, we have videotape in our locker room, TVs in our locker room. So you walk in and you can look at a play right away, because the player will say to you, "Hey, Bill, can you look at that at halftime?" And sure, got it. Walk out and say, "Hey, Vince, you know what? I might have missed that play." Or, "Hey, Vince, I missed that play." Or, "Vince, I got that play. I was right on the play. I would tell you if I'd missed it." And they'll appreciate it.
What'd we miss, Bill?
Yeah, ask the rest of the folks in there what we missed. Feel like a pretty good session to me.
It was awesome.
Anybody want to else talk about? I also would like to commend you guys for taking the time, and I think Paul does obviously a really good job in the opportunity to learn. Not just because it's me, but just the fact that you guys are taking some time out from your evening, and you're willing to invest in yourself, and and move up the ladder, or hey, there's nothing wrong too. If you want to stay at the high school level, referee there for the rest of your life, that's great too. Just enjoy it and get as good as you want to, the level you want to get to.
Thanks for sharing that, Bill. Really, really appreciate your time. You gave us a lot of amazing content, and we're going to all learn from it and be able to kind of process what you gave us and apply it to our own game. So can't thank you enough, and would love to have you back sometime. And look at Ryan. He put on a Crown Ref shirt, so he's ready now.
Rock and roll. There you go.
Had to.
Well, the good thing is he got a shirt on, right? Now, Ryan, if you were really thinking, you would have had that shirt on from the outset.
I was coming back from some games, and I wasn't even thinking about it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, now you know, right?
Yeah,
well, listen, it was great. I enjoyed it too. It's always fun to talk refereeing, and I never really get tired of it. Paul asked if I was watching a lot of games. Well, I'm not watching a lot right now, but it never stops me from talking about it.
Well, thank you so much, Bill. I'll look forward to speaking with you soon.
Sure. Enjoyed it, Paul. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
You bet, guys and ladies. Good to see you. Take care.
Thank you, Bill. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Bill.
You bet. Enjoyed it. Thanks.
Hey, can I ask one more question real quick?
Sure. Make sure it's an easy one.
Hey, this is just a general NBA fan. So I was gonna say, what was one of your favorite cities to ref at in the NBA?
I don't have a favorite city to ref at. I had favorite cities I would just like to go to. Like, I grew up in Los Angeles, so going to Boston and New York was very different than when I grew up. There is a certain energy in Madison Square Garden that is unique, but again, it's still a 94 by 50. And that's what it should be to us as referees. It's just a 94 by 50. But it was cities I would like to go to, not necessarily arenas per se.
Gotcha. Just had to ask.
Yeah, no. Hey, listen, I get asked that question a lot.
Appreciate it.
Usually you get asked by people who are fans, and they think that we're fans too. And I have to explain to them that we're not. That we're desensitized, and we just go out and we're reffing the game. We're not watching it. And I get asked every once in a while, it's really fun watching the player. did you react? And I said, no, but every once in a while, I'd turn around the court and go, geez, wow, that was a pretty good play. But then, boom, you're done with it, and you're moving on.
Yeah, I feel like some of the officials are just like blank face in the NBA, and I'm just like stuff you've never seen before. Jumping out the gym or a crazy 3-point shot from like Steph Curry or something like that, and you're just like, wow,
Well, here's the thing though, we kind of see that every night.
Yeah. Now it's.
I mean, you got the 400 best basketball players in the world. I don't care if you're the 12th man. You're still a damn good basketball player.
Yep. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Thanks again, Bill.
All right, y'all. Take care. Enjoyed being with you tonight.
Thank you for listening to the Crown Refs Podcast. Serve the game.